my spirit, my brothers fight for me. In my spirit, my brothers keep me as we fight. Is it possible that in the state of Minnesota, or anywhere in the country for that matter, if you are elderly and have an estate worth between $100,000 and $500,000, there is a very good chance you could be a target for involuntary commitment to a nursing home or other institution, having your estate raped by a court-appointed guardian and those with whom he or she may be working in collusion, and also being subject to legal and medical abuse, which could ultimately lead to your death should those in control decide to push you away. Well, as far-fetched as all this may seem, I have on my show today people who will document that these things are in fact going on and do implicate, in the process, such people as probate judges, medical doctors, county attorneys, coroners, guardians, social workers, bankers, and the police. So please welcome to my show Mary Jane Duchesne, President and founder of Diabetics Disabled Anonymous, Roxanne Hutton, who is co-authoring the book with Mary Jane, and their guests as we discuss documentation of all of the above and how it relates to the vulnerable adult laws currently on the books. Ladies, now is Marie. Joining me again today. I'm Terry Kennedy, the host of the Students I See It. And I feel quite honored to have the guests that I have with me today and that are going to be with me again for part 2 next week, so that we can talk about what to me is the tip of an iceberg that I think is going to reveal an incredible scandal nationwide, because I think if it's happening in the Twin Cities, in Minnesota, it's happening everywhere. And without anything any further, why I want to welcome my guest, Mary Jane. Nice to have you on. I'll do a stretch here. Roxanne, good to have you. And Georgina. Georgina. I didn't have your name ready in order to be able to put in my opening statement. I apologize for that. It's Georgina DeMars.
Yes, sir.
And we're going to get to your specific case in just a little bit, Georgina. But Mary Jane, why don't you give us the essence of what we're all about on this show today?
Well, basically, I started this group, Diabetics Disabled Anonymous, because I had a horrific experience where I had a jointly owned estate with my mother. My mother became ill. I came here to look after her, and between an aunt, a social worker, a policeman, and so on, these people managed to grasp that estate away from my mother and myself, and ultimately terminated my mother's life or murdered my mother by taking away her influence. And I felt that this was so outrageous. I could see that this was very outrageous. I have a legal background, and I was relatively aware of a lot of things, and I thought this must be happening pretty widely because it was very outrageous. And I did eventually start this group, and I met Georgine and other people like her. Mm-hmm. And because I feel something's going to be done, I think this is really a frightening state of affairs.
What I mentioned to a friend of mine today that about this show that I was going to be having, and the first question that came out of the person's mouth was, well, how did that happen? If the parents or the family is in charge of the estate, how do this whole group of people, how do they get control of the estate? That's a real mystery, probably to most people.
Right. Okay. Well, people make a lot of assumptions. Okay. Basically, the vulnerable adult laws, which means the social worker and the policeman a lot of power, and also medical professionals a lot of power.
These are statutes that are on the
statutes actually went into effect in, I think, 1984 as they passed. They became law in 1984 or early 1985, and this happened to my mother in 1986. With my mother in 1986, and basically that shouldn't. It gives these people a great deal of power to allege abuse if they people are, or they can commit people. It gives them a great deal of leeway. Besides that, the law is not strictly interpreted according to how it's written. They're supposed to have to go through court procedures and so on, and they didn't do that. No. And they certainly didn't do that in 1986. In fact, they used powers of attorney instead of guardianships, and I just read about a case in Hennepin County recently where a social worker ripped up someone for $1 million and had not been followed it. I'm interested to see how that case plays. I think that case should be in the mainstream media quite a bit very soon. Within the next few months, this year.
Now, Larkin, when I was talking to you on the phone and you were kind of briefing me on some of the specifics on the cases, you mentioned something rather interesting, and that was that if your estate is worth less than $100,000 or more than $500,000, you're not a target. Can you explain?
Yes, it's really an interesting way. This is sort of a business to these people. They do this for a living, to not so much to make the salaries. And let's face it, social workers, police officers do not get huge salaries. So this is sort of a little business that they run. Now, like most businesses, you have to target your market, right?
Right.
Now, if somebody has an estate of less than, roughly $100,000, it could be a little bit less in some cases. It's not really worth the time and trouble to do it. Okay. Whereas if it's over than, $500,000, or maybe a little bit more, or $1 million, there are too many attorneys, accountants, whatnot involved. So you run the risk of being brought to task for what you're doing. But in this middle ground where you have a substantial amount of money, but not so much that you have a cadre of attorneys and accountants, you're vulnerable.
Yes.
They can come in, they can write powers of attorney, they can use other various tools that they've developed in conducting these cases over the years to basically clean you out. And there isn't a whole heck of a lot you can do about it. Most people are not familiar with the technicalities of the law, and the law is all technical.
Yeah.
The I's aren't dotted and the T's aren't crossed. It's amazing how deep the yoga can be.
Can I add something on it? Yeah. Because when this happened with my mother, a social worker and attorney turned up at her house with false accusations against me of abuse, which they knew. 18 months later, when we deposed the social worker admitted he knew that. But to get me out of the picture, because I owned half the money, half the house, everything. It was my ownership.
So they thought they were going to be able to just kind of run you off the shelf.
Right. And the thing is, I lived in England most of the time, so I lived abroad. And I think they thought I was deceived. Now, the thing is, though, it cost me. I didn't do that. I tend to get annoyed when someone thinks I'm stupid and so on. So it cost me. I got an attorney, and it cost me. I think it was either $20,000 for attorney fees and phone calls from Europe before my mother died. That was the beginning. Then we went into COVID, and the attorney fees for that, the battles that went on to that were huge. And I've done a lot of the legal work myself. Really, it's incredible. I mean, I couldn't have been done if I had been able to do a lot.
You didn't have the background that you have.
Or a lot of money.
Yeah, which is commonly you studied law in England, which gives you a really good basis of common law, which is what our country is supposed to be based on.
Right.
So that gives you what you needed to do the work.